Hello, welcome to the Cricketers Playbook podcast following the Champions Trophy tournament, which saw India prevail in the final in Dubai, Pakistan. Not exactly sure where that one was held, where it was meant to be played. But guys, anyway, I'm your host, Tim Williams, and we are here to recap the week that was in the world of cricket. Rando and I, we're back from the NRL opener in Las Vegas. Bit of a delay between shows there, but we're back to a weekly recording. Here to talk to me about the world in cricket, as always, Random Stats Guy. Rando, how are you, mate?
Good, mate. We survived America, obviously. It was a great time over there, but in between, just chucking on the Champions Trophy while I was in New York, while I was in Austin. Probably not as much in Vegas, but when we got home, got to see the final as well, which was an absolute classic.
Yeah, bit blurry through the Vegas stages of it, but definitely caught up on anything that. And we were back on deck for the final and catching up with those games. Also with us, as always, Cricket Australia commentator Max Bryden. Maxie, you were on deck on Australian soil, just chewing through a bit of Shield action, Marsh Cup, Champions Trophy. You've seen it all.
Mate, that's it, Timmy. And I was going to say, this is when the real cricket fans get into their work. You can have your Test summer, you can have your Big Bash, but sign me up to a Champions Trophy tournament played in the middle of the night into wall-to-wall Sheffield Shield, played in front of about 100 people and their dogs. I was in absolute heaven, mate. So excited to get stuck into it today.
Absolutely, mate. And that's a nice segue. For those new to the Cricketers Playbook podcast, I feel like, we've been coming in and recording over the Australian summer, but we're about to come into our own, and why I wanted to really get this up and going across the course of the year. Now the Australian cricket summer is over, for certainly Australians, the attention turns, the focus shifts to the footy seasons, whether that's AFL, rugby league, soccer, football, whatever you want to call it. It goes there. So basically we want to keep Aussies in touch with what's going on in the world of cricket, whether that's the Aussies in the county cricket over in the UK, pressing their claim, staking their claim for the World Test Championships final for a spot in that. Update people on how the Indian Premier League's going, who's starring, who's flopping over there, who's earning their $1 billion for a month of work. But we want to do it all in bite-sized bits. So we don't want Aussie cricket fans who love the game to come back in 6, 7, 8 months' time, heading into the next summer, going, I've no idea what happened. We want them to be going, all right, the Cricketers Playbook podcast has kept us up to date, short, sharp, hot topics, what's been going on. And of course, not all Australian folks. It's the world of cricket. So we'll touch on the key talking points from all the nations around the world, who starred and who has struggled. On today's show, obviously a big focus on the Champions Trophy. We're going to look at the Indian side and playing all their games out of Dubai. Was it too big an advantage having to not travel for their fixtures and play on the same deck? That's a big talking point out of the tournament. We're also looking at the players whose reputations grew the most in the tournament, including that of player of the tournament, Rachin Ravindra. We're going to look at the Sheffield Shield, which is nearing a tense finish back, obviously, on Aussie soil. One round to go there. South Australia, almost South Africa, locked in to host the Shield final. It'll be weird if South Africa were hosting it. Who will they face? And then the One-Day Cup rapid review there. Which next generation players stood up in that tournament that saw South Australia end a 13-year title drought? Boys, let's get stuck into the Champions Trophy though. India, another major piece of silverware to their cabinet, winning the Champions Trophy. Too strong in this tournament. But probably the talking point leading into it and coming out of it was that obviously the tournament hosted in Pakistan, India playing all of their games in Dubai on the same wicket. A quote from Rohit Sharma around this: there are 4 or 5 surfaces that are being used and every surface has a different nature. The pitches look the same, but when you play on it, it has played in a different way. So you can't go thinking, we played this like yesterday and today we'll play like this. We don't know which pitch is going to be played in the semi-final, but whatever happens, we have to adapt and see what is happening. This is not our home. This is Dubai. We don't play so many matches here. This is new for us too. Max, I'll start with you, mate. Even just a general tournament recap, and then the big one. Was the advantage, did they have too big an advantage, India, or is what Rohit Sharma said, does that stand true?
It's very hard to argue with a player the stature of Rohit and sort of suggest that maybe he's not being as honest as he could or should be. But, geez, if that's not the biggest advantage that any team had in that entire tournament, then I'm not here. Putting the pitch aside and the fact that they were playing in conditions that were familiar to them each game. Other teams had to play in very different conditions. In Pakistan, we essentially went from games that were played that were very batter-friendly, several scores well over 300, to games that were a grind, to games that were played up against multiple spinners, sometimes up to 40 overs of spin coming down at some of these teams. So, you add in that, you add in the travel factor as well. People are having to fly from Pakistan into Dubai to play India. Meanwhile, India are just camped up at the hotel, feet up, swimming in the pool, maybe a few pina coladas as well in between games. I think they had it pretty easy. Was it an advantage? Absolutely, it was. Whether Rohit wants to admit it or not, it was a massive advantage for India. They still had to go out there and win it, and they were good enough to do so. But yeah, it was made easier for them, that's for sure.
Yeah, mate, for the record, Virat Kohli, a big mojito guy, I believe, not the pina colada, so just remember that one. Rando, what are your thoughts on it, mate? And for the record, we're not sitting here to debate whether or not India were the best team in the tournament. They won it. They emerged victorious. And congratulations to them, who are just, phenomenal white ball cricketers, and across all formats, of course. But I do think it's very hard to argue for Rohit Sharma and his comments before that semi-final that when you're playing at the same venue every week and not having the travel, that's my thoughts. What do you think?
Well, they have a great record in Dubai International Cricket Stadium. They never lost a game. They've played 10 games there. They've only tied one, and that was against Afghanistan. This is in ODIs. Fair play that at the start of the tournament, they hadn't played in Dubai for 7 years. 2018 was their last ODI there, but still just were able to not travel. I think that was a big part. You see South Africa and New Zealand crazy stories where they're leaving Dubai at 4 a.m. South Africa had an 18-hour layover in Dubai as well. On top of that, and then when they had to come back to play New Zealand, they'd have like a 30-hour gap. So I think that all just messes with your head. And we did the full fight path over in the US, and you couldn't tell me to go out and play a semi-final ODI against a team that's already been sitting there waiting the entire time for the opposition to come. So I think it was a bit of an unfair advantage. Yes, it wasn't their home ground. Yes, the pitch kept changing, but still, I mean, all the other teams didn't have the luxury of that. They had to cop a 2,000-kilometre flight across the Persian Gulf to play against India, and with the uncertainty whether they'll be in a final or who their opponent would be up until the last game, that definitely would have played a part on the mindset of players. So, India definitely not going to take anything away from them. They were the best team, but geez, the flight and the travelling definitely would have played a part.
Yeah, congratulations to the India on the victory over the Kiwis in the final, whose record in finals not really stacking up well over the last 6 to 8 years. But again, another great tournament from the Kiwis in this one, despite falling a little bit short. So congrats to the Indians, but you had a bit of an advantage. Let's call it what it was. Looking across the rest of the tournament, Maxi, whose reputations do we think grew across it? Of course, Ratchem Ravindra, we mentioned, 2 centuries and player of the tournament. He's certainly one there. Who else stood out to you across the tournament?
Yeah, I think it was an interesting tournament, particularly just in the sense that rain impacted so many of the group stage matches. I think Australia completed 2 matches of the 4 that they set out to play, so not a great record, and we didn't get to see as much cricket as we would have liked, but a couple of guys that really stood out to me, one in particular was probably Axar Patel. I spoke about him prior to the tournament just being one of my favourite cricketers just because he bowls like a praying mantis, and I absolutely love that. But he's taken himself from a number 8, number 7 batter, handy all-rounder, to India's number 5 in this tournament. And he plays just a style of cricket which really suited the conditions and really suited the makeup of this team as well. He doesn't have a huge array of shots, but he consistently can score runs. He can slog sweep. He can take down left-arm orthodox spinners from the other side. So I think that he's definitely going to come out of this tournament with his reputation enhanced, and just the balance that having a guy that you can bat for number 5 who can give you 10 fantastic overs of orthodox spin as well is just... It's almost a cheat code, I think, in white ball cricket. So he's certainly one of them. Another guy that I really wanted to call out as well, one of my favourite cricketers, big bad Benny Dorsius as well from Australia.
He's not one of your favourites. If you can tell me there's a player in world cricket that you like more than Ben Dorsius, I'm all ears.
Well, I think, Ben people who wouldn't be familiar with the origins of Timmy's claim there, which I'm not going to say is too far from the truth, would just be that his record, particularly in Australian domestic cricket in the Big Bash, he's just consistently flying under the radar, taking wickets, and it was really great to see him step up into national colours in one-day cricket. Not even a format that he's played that much domestically, just because he's so injury-prone, and do well for Australia. He bowls at all periods of the game. He's got good change-ups, and I think now that he's really sort of put his name up in lights as one that could be a bankable player for Australia once this current generation of Aussie greats, Aussie quicks move on.
And do we think Maxi, like around that point, Stark, Hazelwood, probably more so those two, but like a few of these Aussie quicks who, we don't know how much longer they've got in the white ball arena, whether that's focusing on Test cricket or whenever they call stumps, whenever it might be on their careers. Benny Dwarshuis, he's one who, he's certainly not young. He's bided his time to sort of get a lot of time across the tournament. Has he done enough to sort of put his hand up as once they're gone? Do they look for a bit more youth? Who really stood out in that regard for the Australians?
Yeah, I think in white ball cricket he did for sure. He hasn't played a lot of red ball cricket, but certainly I think with white ball now, his name's going to be right at the top of that list of people who can come in when those guys are injured or resting, or once they retire, he can do a job for us. I think alongside him as well, Nathan Ellis now, he's just world class. This is a guy who we need to now put respect on his name, that he's well in the conversation of being in the first choice Australian team, particularly just because compared to Hazelwood, Stark and Cummins, he just offers a real point of difference just with his speciality as a death bowler, his change-ups. Spencer Johnson had a decent tournament as well. He can swing the ball up front, bowls quick and has the ability to bowl death. Probably the two guys that weren't there that you can add into that list of names. One, he's been around for a while, but Jai Richardson, like if he can ever get his body fit, he's gonna do good. And we do wish him all the best as well. The other guy as well who I really like, and again, shouldn't shock anyone, but Xavier Bartlett, his last 2 years of cricket, he's really just gone from being that talented youngster to a man. Yep. He bowls quick, he swings a new ball, his seam position's impeccable. He can get movement out of the ball in surfaces that others can't. He's got a lot of the Michael Nieses about him, but I think even again, he's probably got just an extra gear of pace on top of Nisa. Hopefully he's got better timing with Nisa as well, the guy who should have played a lot more cricket nationally for Australia. But I think that there's a good young crop, and seeing Ben do well at this tournament's given me more confidence as well as we move forward.
Could say that Bartlett has the X factor.
Like it.
Rando, who stood out for you, mate?
For me, for the Indians, a name that probably didn't get thrown around much, but I thought he kind of stabilised the Indian batting innings, and that was Shreyas Iyer. I thought he was brilliant. He didn't stand out with a ton or anything like that, but just consistent scores of mid-40s plus for India coming in, batting at 4, really stabilising their innings. The Indians, they didn't score massive runs. I think their high score was 267 the whole series. So just him being there, just batting through that period, definitely probably wouldn't get the plaudits or the praise because of not lifting out the bat and the helmet, but I thought he was pretty gun for India. And then for New Zealand, I thought Matt Henry dearly missed in that final. They would have really loved to see him. He took 5 for against India in that Dubai match in the pool stages as well. And the fact that he wasn't there, the leading wicket taker of the Champions Trophy, definitely would have had a massive impact in that outcome for them. So, yeah, I thought he was impressive again.
We put a few tips out. You messaged Maxie and I pre-tournament, said, boys, tips for the tournament top run scorer, wicket taker, etc. I don't know if you did anything with that, but if we circle back, someone had
you took 5 hours to get back to me, and by that point I was on a plane. I was like, fucking hell.
We'll get the screenshot put out on socials. Guys, back to home soil, the Sheffield Shield, the One Day Cup. Coming to the culmination there, One Day Cup is done. Sheffield Shield, though, we will start with 1 round to go. South Australia locked in to host the Shield final. Who will face them, though? We've got Queensland in second, taking on South Australia in first. Tassie in sixth, host New South Wales in third. Western Australia in fourth, host Victoria in fifth. Tassie are the only side who cannot make the final. A few questions for you boys. And Max, I'll start with you. Basically, what are you looking for in this final round? Who do you think ends up taking on South Australia in the final?
Mate, it's been a great tournament. This is a format that in some years you don't get results like this because there's a lot of draws, but we're seeing a lot of victories this year. I don't know if we're getting the same sort of pitches we saw in the Test Summer that had a fair bit of juice in them. And we're also getting some really, really mixed results. And for one, I love that South Australia are kind of standing up after being whipping boys for so long. I think that the big two games that I want to watch this week are firstly Queensland versus South Australia, first playing second. South Australia have got another real opportunity to kind of stand atop the pack and assert their dominance with a chance to win at home, although Queensland are coming home with a wet sail, particularly with Michael Nisa returning to the side in the second half of the tournament. The one for me, and if you haven't worked this out, we do record in New South Wales, so you're probably talking to a couple of blue baggers here, but I would love to see New South Wales go down, take the points off Tassie, in what are typically bowler-friendly conditions down there, and make it all the way into the final. Now, they will need results to go their way. If Queensland win, then they will gain the 6 points they need to play the final against South Australia. But I would love to see the Blues get up. I'd love to see some guys in that team like Jackson Bird, Curtis Patterson continue their really strong seasons and lift the trophy as well.
Very good. There's a few blue baggers on this one. I assume another one is Rando. Rando, what are you looking out for this weekend?
No, I think I'm really excited for the Queensland-South Australia game. First, second. Queensland fan here, so I'd love to see Queensland get the job done in Adelaide. You look back at their last 5 head-to-heads, they're gone win-loss, and then a match drawn in that last 5, so you can't really split them. South Australia got the job done early in the season by 129 runs, so I would really like to see Queensland get back. It's going to be probably played in Adelaide the next test. So hopefully, next Shield game. So hopefully Queensland can get the job done, build some confidence, and then dust South Australia again. They already won the One Day Cup. They don't need another domestic trophy under their belt, right?
Change it up. Maxi, what about standout performers? Anyone sort of pressing for national honours? Can you update other listeners out there who have already tuned out from the cricket season once the summer was over, on certainly Sammy Constas as well, where he's sitting, how he's performed, and as you said, the ones who have stood out to you? Yeah,
look, Constas is an interesting one, particularly mentioning him just because, much like we sort of expected this at the start of the summer, that there'd be that race for the opener's spot to replace David Warner after he retired a summer ago. But Constas really hasn't necessarily been the guy who stood up apart from those twin tons in round 1 of the Sheffield Shield season. But two guys who have opening the batting. One, Henry Hunt over in South Australia. He is actually the brother of the Matildas defender Claire Hunt. There's one little fun fact for you. And he does come from the great state of New South Wales as well. So that's the second one for you. But he started the tournament slow, which was a shame because he sort of missed that opportunity to press his claim for an opening spot in the Test team, but has come home really strong. I think he's in the top 4 run scorers for the season so far. He's got 3 centuries for South Australia, and he's really done a lot of heavy lifting for them later in the tournament. The other opener who has been flying under the radar, but it's such a fantastic story to see him come good again, is Jake Weatherall. Jake's a boy from the Territory, played his cricket for South Australia, went down to Tassie a couple of years ago after losing his contract and really losing his love for the game. He turned it around at points last summer, had some really good scores in both red and white ball cricket for Tasmania. So much to the point that he asked them to release him for his contract and go home to South Australia because he thought he wanted to be nearer to home. They denied that. They said, mate, you've got a contract and you're too good. And thankfully they did, because I think he's about second or third on the run scorers lists. He scored a couple of really big tons. And what has been probably most impressive about this guy, who I think on talent alone has the capability to play at the next level. But he's scoring his runs really quickly as well. You look at his strike rate, it's 10 above anyone else in that top 10 run scorers list. So this is a guy who can not only score runs, but he can score them quickly, which feels like is a bit of a trend that we're seeing in world cricket, but just become more and more important. So it's been awesome seeing Jake Weatherall put his name back up in lights. And there's a couple of openers who are putting a bit of pressure on Constas as well.
Yeah, every time we think sort of we may be seeing the end of the Jake Weatherall era, he finds form, and it's great to see. So one of the great stories to see him killing it in the Shield this season. Rando, what about you, mate? Who's caught your eye?
I think there's been a few, and they're all ex-Australian players as well. You look at the list of the top run scorers, for instance, you got names like Hilton Cartwright, Curtis Patterson, and Peter Hanscom. 3 of the top 4. So there's definitely a few players still going hard. I really like Jack Clayton as well. I thought he's done really well. 350s. He's hit a ton as well. He's going to be big in this final round match and potentially in the final as well. So would really like to see him do well. In terms of bowlers, Birdie. He's come back as well. Another former Australian player, averaging 14 in the Shield this series. Second top wicket taker and played 2 less matches than the top wicket taker, Fergus O'Neill. So many players that are looking really good who are just turning back and winding back the clock. I'll get to a player in the One Day Cup as well who's wound back the years as well. But good to see some former players going in there. I'm not too sure if many are pushing for selection. Maybe Curtis Patterson. He's been knocking at the door for a while there. But good to see some old names of yesteryear doing well.
I say get the Birdman a baggy green. Get him back in.
Well, he's got
He got the one in the SCG.
Yeah.
Famous one.
No, but like keeping in the World Test Champs. We love Birdie. I freaking love the bloke. Who do you like more, Maxie, out of Dwarshus and Bird?
Don't ask me to tell you which child I love most.
Dwarshus, easy.
Ben Dwarshus. Boys, let's move on to the One Day Cup. South Australia crowned winners there, ending a 13-year drought. Turned the state around under new coach Ryan Harris. Some of the great performers there. Bo Webster, speaking of Australian cricketers, second leading wicket taker, an average of just 9. I will repeat that, 9. Unbelievable. Mac Harvey moved to South Australia, topped the run scoring charts with 334 runs. Mitchie Owen, the story of the Big Bash, 149 off, 69 balls, 10 sixes. Someone, again, just pushing for national honours. Maxie, who caught your eye in the One Day Cup?
Mate, those names you mentioned were right up there for me. I kind of think that like a nickname for Mitch Owen's just starting to become like the push notification because he's just sort of one of those guys where the whispers emerge and then the push notification comes out either from Cricket Australia or it's on Twitter just saying Mitch Owen is going berserk. Get to a television.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what happened in that one-day match at South Australia. There is a little bit of a part of my brain which is asking the question if he's a bit of a flat-track bully, given that he scores most of his runs at Blunston and then goes to Adelaide Oval where it's an absolute road and just goes berserk. But, yeah, scoring 149 off 69 deliveries with 10 sixes. Jeez. It's like the potential that we saw of this guy in the Big Bash with a 4-over power play, right? Like, let's give him 10 in a one-day match and see what he does. And he had that opportunity and he went nuts. So it's a type of performance that he's going to get national selectors really looking at him. It's a type of performance that if he hadn't done it already, he's going to get him on the radar of more T20 leagues around the competition as well. I like him. I like the Big Bison. I've learned his name this year, which is good because I kept forgetting it at the start of this cricket season. But, yeah, really, really good to see Mitch Owen go well.
Yeah, and you know what? If you can do this on flat tracks around the world and he's playing in tournaments with worse decks, just pick him for the flat track games. I don't care.
Yeah,
good to watch.
Absolutely.
Rando, who caught your eye?
For me, as I was saying, speaking of wounding back the clock, the leading wicket taker, Peter Siddle. This isn't, I had to double check. I wasn't looking at 2004-05 One Day Cup stats here. It is 2024-25. Unreal stuff. I mean, you had Sammy Elliott as well, but half of his wickets were taken in one game alone with his 7 for 12. So plenty of wicket takers that took my fancy in this One Day Cup. So I think you tapped on it with Mitch Owen. You basically stole that from me. But, he's such an obvious pick to choose. He's been really pushing his case for an Australian spot.
Yeah. Boys, time to go to part 2 of the show, the World Team of the Week. The part where we scour the world in cricket to find the best individual performances, both international and domestic, to pick our World Team of the Week. Once named, we vote on our 3-2-1 for the standout performances, with the points going towards the race for the mace to decide the dominant country in world cricket. To avoid any bias, Aussie domestic performances have to be complete standouts to get points. But this week, it is an easy one. We're just going to recap the Champions Trophy, naming our team in the tournament there. It is based on individual performances, not necessarily across the tournament. That is the way we go about this. We've all been given teams to do this in. We need to find 2 openers, 4 middle order bats, a wicket keeper, and 4 bowlers. Maxie, I'll start with you, mate. Who have you found up top?
Mate, for the opening slot, I have to give kudos to an Englishman, which I don't love to do, but I'm prepared to on this occasion. Mr. Ben Duckett, 165 of the best against Australia. Great innings, hell of a player. Hell of a post-match press conference as well, where he basically said that this game shouldn't count because of how much the conditions changed in the second innings. It's like, sorry, didn't you guys win the toss and have the opportunity to bat second if you wanted? So just wild stuff. But anyway, he's maybe let your bat do the talking like you did, Ben. That's much better than your post-match interview.
Imagine firstly scoring 165 in a one-dayer and then losing. You'd be filthy at the rest of your team. But secondly, the Poms just, boys, even in that instance, you scored 165, just be happy. Don't make excuses, just move on. Anyway, Rando, what'd you find?
For me, Ibrahim Zadran, the highest score in Champions Trophy history, 177 off 146 against England, which makes it even better. It definitely covers his other scores of 22 and 17 throughout the tournament. Had to drop him in.
For myself, the Kiwi Will Young, 107 off 113 pills against Pakistan. Boys, our openers this week, Zadran and Duckett. Middle order bats we need 4 here. Maxi, who'd you find?
Yeah, look, it was pretty easy to find guys in the middle order because there was a lot of tons. I think the format just lends itself to it really nicely. But 2 from Rachin Ravindra from New Zealand, hell of a ICC tournament player, this man. First off, he scored 112 against Bangladesh, and then he scored 108 against South Africa as well. Was enough to see him play in the tournament? Was it enough to see him in our team of the week? You'll have to wait and find out. The next guy was David Miller as well. Classy middle order player from South Africa. 100 not out against New Zealand as well. So they were my 3.
Very nice. Rando?
For me, couldn't go past Kane Williamson's ton against South Africa. It is slow start to the tournament and then kicked off with an 80 into this 102 against South Africa. For the other player, Toward Hidroy. Hopefully I pronounced that okay. The king of pronunciations over here, Maxi. He's given me the nod, so I've done well here. A ton against India, Bangladesh. They only really had 2 games, so he was able to make a statement with one of them.
For myself, Joe Root, another Englishman there, 120 runs. Shubman Gill, he knocked out 101 not out of 129 balls. Virat Kohli, he had an unbeaten century as well, of course, against Pakistan in that one. So our middle order, boys, goes to Williamson, Ravindra, Iyer, and our wicketkeeper, whom we have not named yet. Who'd you find wicketkeeper, Maxi?
Wicketkeeper, well, my nomination was Josh Inglis, a.k.a. Joss English. That a lot of commentators still call him, which is pretty funny. He got 120 not out in that match against England for Australia. It was the highest successful chase in Champions Trophy history. His first ton in ODI colours for Australia, and I think becoming maybe just the 3rd Australian to score a ton in ODI, T20 and Test match cricket. The fact he did his Test match and his ODI tons in basically the space of a couple of weeks is pretty awesome too. So Josh Inglis.
Unbelievable few months for Joss English, I should say. Rando.
For me, looked at Ryan Rickleton here. He's been in great form. We say his name, I feel like, every team of the week time. But 103 against Afghanistan. Plus, he took 2 catches on top of that. I thought that was a great individual performance from him.
Alrighty, boys, we have gone. I had Tom Latham, 118 against Pakistan there as well. Our wicketkeeper, though, was Joss Inglis.
It's in your head now, isn't it?
It is. Bowlers, Maxi, who'd you find?
Just the one for me, but a very important one from India, Varun Chakravarti. Fantastic leg spinner, really sort of burst onto the scene in the last couple of months, really, for India through T20 cricket and ODI cricket. 5 for 42 against New Zealand. He was a huge part of their title, basically. His ability to not only take wickets, but just keep it tight throughout the tournament. So Varun Chakravarti is my nomination.
Lovely. Rando?
For me, 2 players here. Matt Henry, he took 5 for 42 against India in Dubai, as I mentioned. Would have been awesome to see him play in the finals to see what he could do. Ended up being the leading wicket taker of the tournament. From the second one is Azmatullah Omazi. Omazi. I think I was right with the first one. 5 for 58 against England. Once again, We love to see players perform against the Poms. Sorry to our English listeners or Josh English listeners. 5 for 58 will do. Yeah, we're working on it. We're back from Vegas. We're still working.
Well, yeah, a bit of work to do. For myself, Mohammed Shami, 5 for 53 against Bangladesh, and Michael Bracewell, 4 for 26, also against the poor old Bangers. Boys, our bowling lineup: Amaze, Henry, Chakravarti, and Shami. So our team for the week: Zadran, Duckett, Williamson, Ravindra, Iyer, Inglis, Bracewell, Amazai, Henry, Chakravarti, and Shami. 3, 2, 1 for the week. Maxi, what did you find?
Yeah, pretty easy for me. I did sort of go a little bit off script and looked at the broader tournament performance as well as just the individual performances. But for me, I chose 1 point to Varun Chakravarti from India, 2 points to Mad Matt Henry, and 3 hard to go past Rachin Ravindra from New Zealand.
Yep. Rando?
For me, I went 1 vote with Shreyas Iyer. I thought he was brilliant and consistent. Some good scores there. 75 was his lead one. Then I went into the leading wicket taker, Matt Henry. I thought he was spectacular. And to finish, Rachin Ravindra, player of the tournament. Got to pick him.
For myself, Matt Henry gets 1 vote. Pains me to say it, and it was in a losing cause with a bit of a whinge in the post-match presser. But Ben Duckett, 165 runs in an ODI in a major tournament. Not a bad knock. So 2 points to me. And also Rachin Ravindra gets the 3 as well. So it is 3 points to Ravindra and New Zealand, 2 to Matt Henry in New Zealand, and Iyer with India gets 1. The race for the Mace. Australia are out in front on 19. India on 11 in second, joined by the Black Caps, the Kiwis, also on 11. South Africa on 10 in 4. England in 5th down on 4 points. Windies 4, Pakistan 2, Afghanistan 1. Boys, that'll do us for the Cricketers Playbook podcast this week. Good return, Maxie, after a little bit of a layoff. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Timo. Thanks, Reno. Thanks, listeners. And I can't wait for the final round of the Sheffield Shield to start on Saturday.
Oh, yeah. Rando?
Not moving on jumping on KO, Queensland, South Australia, a couple of multi-screens. How good.
Footy's back, final round of the Shield, life's good. Boys, we won't be back in a couple of days' time on the Monday, but we are looking to record this regularly of a Monday for the rest of, leading into the IPL, the World Test Championships, the county season, all that great cricket coming up. So, guys, thank you for tuning in.